Everyone, this is Maureen and welcome to My Crochet Story. Excuse me. Today is Thursday, February the 8th, and we are here to take a little look at my little make that I have for you today. This beanie is made by using the daisy stitch, and I really hadn't come up with a name for her other than to just call her the Pretty Little Fields of Daisies. So that's what I think I will be calling her. It's the Field of Daisies beanie. And all it is, folks, is just a one row repeat. We take and finish off the crown with some half double crochets. And then you know me, I love to use this cute, beautiful little crab stitch here to finish off the bottom. But before we get into how I put her all together, let me say welcome to all of you that are here. You know how much I appreciate your time. Every time I put up a video, you seem to come over and look to see what it is I'm up to. This little beanie is made with some yarn from Joann's. In fact, it is their house brand, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But if this is your first time here, welcome into you as well. I greatly appreciate your time, and I hope that one of the things that you like to make are hats, because I tell you what, they are the most favorite thing that I do like to make. I do hope that you'll watch the video all the way to the end, or at least enough of it to make you interested to see what else I have on my channel, and pop on over there. Look around. I have hats and scarves and just all sorts of things going on over there, and please, like I said, take just a moment to look around, see if there's something that you're interested in, and if there is, please consider hitting that subscribe button over there in the corner, and then look for the bell that's got those little hugs on the side, because it'll let you know every time I upload some content. So let's talk about this beanie for just a minute. Now, she's made a little differently than all my other beanies, and what I mean by that is we are going to start by making the middle section of the hat first, and we're going to make her in a rectangle. Now, as I said, this is just a one stitch, one row repeat. That's all there is to it. So you can make your hat as large or as small as you want. You can also make it as tall as you want. Or if you like, you can also just make one little strip here, about 4 or 5 rows, maybe 6, and then just finish it off and turn it into a head warmer. Lots of things you can do with this little stitch. But like I said, I decided to make mine into a hat. I do hope that you'll enjoy this. So as I said, we're going to start with the middle, get her done first, then we're going to seam her up. Then we will look at how we make the crown, and then how we're going to finish up the brim here. So this is made out of 4-weight acrylic, and I'm going to be using a Furls hook. This is the Rosewood edition, and it is made with an H. You're also going to need some scissors, a darning needle, and measuring tape. And while I have this in my hand, let me tell you that I did make this little beanie here. It is let's see, it is 16 inches in circumference. It is going to be about 7 inches tall. So like I said, that'll just depend on, you know, what you want to do with it, and I talk about that throughout the tutorial of making up the beanie. So if you're ready, grab yourself some yarn. It does not have to be this color. You can choose any color that you like, but I will caution you that the stitches will not show up very well if you decide to use a variegated yarn. I would suggest staying with a solid color. So if you're ready, I'll give you just a moment to go gather your materials, and we'll meet back here in just a few minutes. Alright, so this hat that we're constructing today is going to be made with this 100% Big Twist. It is Joann's in-house brand yarn. This is the Big Twist value. It has 380 yards or 347 meters. Now, what I like about this tag, and you'll see this most times, but not always, the thing that I like about Joann's is that it will tell you how many skeins you need for each particular project. And so I think that's just a really nice little code there for you to be able to have, especially if you're just walking around and you see a particular color or skein that you like. If it's got this kind of notation, it gives you a good idea of how much you're supposed to buy or should consider buying. Now, excuse me, if you're going to use this yarn to knit with, it recommends the US 8 5mm. If you're going to crochet, it's recommended that you use the US H or 8 5mm. This is a medium 4-weight yarn, and yes, it is a very, very nice 4-weight. I really like Big Twist. Now, it is recommended that you only throw this in the washing machine and then lay it flat to dry. But folks, you know, if only my recommendation, I know a lot of people just wash and dry and let it go, but my opinion is, if you're going to spend so much time creating something, especially even if it's for yourself, but whenever you give it as a gift, I would just recommend to them that the garment or the piece will last a whole lot longer if they'll just take the time, hand wash it, and then let it sit and air dry. This color is called Olive Drab. Now folks, I don't consider it to be drab. It is most definitely a beautiful olive color, but I don't think that it should be called a drab, but that's just my personal opinion. One other thing I want to mention to you is be sure that if you're going to buy more than one skein, that you make sure that your color lots are of the same number, because it doesn't happen a whole lot, but it is evidently enough where your dye lots can change just a little bit depending on, quite honestly, the fiber itself. So be sure that if you're going to have more than one skein for a project, that you check your dye lots and get enough for that one project. Okay, so cute story for you. At the making of this video for this hat, I ran into a little problem with my recording software. It decided that it needed to do a major update. And when I mean major update, I mean that it closed out all of the pieces of the tutorial that I had made up to this point. And when I was able to go back and open up my recording program, what had led up to this little piece of the hat was gone. But not all is lost, because I have decided that what I'm going to do, rather than rip this out, I'm not doing that. I'm going to show you on a smaller scale how to develop this middle part of the hat, because folks, it is just a 1-row repeat. You can use any even number of stitches, any even number count of chains. Mine, I had to chain 70 in order to get this swatch here, or this part of my hat, to measure 16 inches. Now, depending on your tension and how large you want the hat, if you want it to be 20 inches, then I would suggest that you just chain and then lay your chain down. Do not stretch it out. Make sure you have an even number of stitches to measure out to 20 inches, and then you'll be fine. But like I said, for the person that I have this in mind for, I didn't need to make it as big as my head, so I didn't make it to be 19 to 20 inches. The beauty again of this stitch is that with it just being even number of stitches and the simplicity in which it is made up, you can make it even for a smaller child, and you can make it for someone with a bigger head and everything in between. You can also not do as many rows, say just do, this is 2, 4, 6, 8, and have a very nice little head warmer. So there's a lot that you can do with this stitch, and in the way that I have done the middle part of the hat. So let me put this aside and let me grab another color of Big Twist. So again, as I said, this is made in even number of stitches. So I'm going to attach my yarn to my hook here. Now let me move the camera down just a little bit. There we go. Get that adjusted more. Alright. Now if you've seen any of my tutorials before, you know that I always say take your time whenever you are creating your chains, because this sets up your project. You want them to have the same tension. You want them to look fairly uniform. So I'm just going to come through here. I think I'm going to make 20 stitches. We'll see how long that makes for me, because I want you to see I want to give you a good enough swatch to see how it's made up. Let's see, how many do I have so far? I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. There we go. 14, 16, 18, 19. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Let's look at that. I think I'll go to about 28. 25, 26, 27, 28. There you go. I think that'll be a nice long piece for us to work with, but let me make sure that that's what I have. It's always best to double check yourself, triple check too if you need to. Alright, we're going to work in the second chain from the hook, and we're going to start off, we're going to give ourselves a foundation row of single crochets. Now 9 times out of 10 I always start out with a foundation row of either a half double crochet or a single crochet, even sometimes a double crochet, just because I like to have structure starting off. So we're going to start in the second chain from the hook. Now you can go right through this first chain, or I like to roll my chain over and work in this back loop of the chain, but you can do yours anywhere you want to. We're going to start in the second chain from the hook. Remember, this loop on your hook doesn't count, it's just your working loop. Over for me, and there's my loop, and we're just going to make single crochets all the way down. Now again, I stress that you take your time. You want to have a nice even tension as much as possible. You also want your starting piece of your garment to not only look pretty, but as I say over and over again, your chain and your foundation row, whatever it may be, whether it is a setup stitch such as I'm using the single crochet, or you're going right into your stitch or your design, it doesn't matter. But I honestly believe if you take your time in the first couple of rows, then you've got a very good foundation for the rest of your project to build upon. Oh, please don't tell me I have a yarn barf. Come on. There we go. Alright, I'm coming down here to the end now. As I said, this is just a setup row. We haven't even started on the stitch itself yet. All right. Okie dokie, there you go. Now I have a nice foundation row in which to get started. All right, you are going to start every row with a chain 3. So we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. Now the daisy stitch, or some people might tell you that what I do is a modified daisy stitch, and that's fine. To me, it's still the daisy stitch. as I said, you're always going to start with a chain 3, and we are going to start by working in this second chain from my hook. We're going to pull up a loop in this chain, pull up a loop in this chain, and then we're going to skip this very first single crochet and pull up a loop in the 4th and then tie it all together. So we're going to go into the chain that's second from the loop, from the hook, pull up a loop. Go into the next chain, which is the 3rd chain from the hook, pull up a loop. There's 3 loops. We're going to skip this stitch, as I said, this very first single crochet, and we're going to go in and under both loops of the single crochet, pull up a loop. We're going to have 4 loops on our hook, going to yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. Then we're going to chain 1 to lock in our stitch. Now, what I want you to see here are these little legs of the stitch, and that's going to make the first part of the daisy. It takes 2 rows of repeating the same thing over and over again, but it'll take 2 rows to make a complete daisy for us. Now, after locking in our stitch with that chain 1, we're going to go right back into that chain 1 and pull up a loop. And then right here in this little hole, which is actually the last stitch that we yarned into to finish out our daisy, we're going to go right back in there. 3 loops, skip the next stitch, and then in that next stitch we're going to go in, pull up a loop. We have 4 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 4. Lock her down. And this is the repeat for the whole entire row. A loop in the chain, loop down into that last stitch that we worked in, skip a stitch, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 4. Then we're going to come back, lock it down with a chain 1, and do the same thing again. I was wondering why that was tightening it up. It's getting around my row there. Here we go again. Go back into that chain 1, pull up a loop, go back into that last stitch we worked into, skip a stitch in the next stitch, pull up a loop, 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4. Lock her down again. Go back into this chain, pull up a loop, go into the last stitch, pull up a loop, skip a stitch, next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 4. And that's what we're going to do all the way till we get to the end of the row. Skip. And when you get down here at the end, you're going to find that you're going to probably think, uh-oh, I messed up somewhere. No, you didn't. Because when we get down here at the end of the row, we're going to do the exact same thing we're just doing. We're just not going to have that extra stitch to skip. So I'm going to lock this down, go right back into my chain, go into the stitch that I just worked into, and instead of skipping a stitch, I'm going to go right in to that very last single crochet, and then we'll yarn over. And there is my first row of little daisy stitches. Now, like I said, this is just one side of the daisies, so now I'm going to chain 3, because remember I told you when we get ready to start a row, each row is going to start with a chain 3, and turn our work. Sorry. And we're going to do the process again. Second chain from the hook, go in, pull up a loop. Third chain from the hook, go in, pull up a loop. We're going to skip this very first stitch here, and we're going to go into this little hole here that is the center of the daisy from the row before. There's our 4 loops. Going to pull up a loop, go through all 4 and lock down our stitch. Do it again. Go into our chain 1. Going to go back into this little hole here that was created from our daisy from the previous row, which is also the stitch that we went into from the previous stitch. We're going to skip this little stitch here, and then look, the next hole that we're going to go into is also the center of the daisy from the previous row. There's my 4 loops. Yarn over, pull through all 4, and lock down the stitch. And just as in row 2, we're just going right on through. It's just that maybe the stitches look a little bit different. Going into our chain, coming down here and going into the hole of the flower, which is actually that last stitch that we worked into before we closed off our daisy. Going to skip this stitch here, go into this hole, which is actually the center of the daisy from the row below. Yarn over. And as I said, we're doing the exact same thing that we did in the previous row, just maybe in a little bit different spot. But it's very easy to see where you're stitching. Lock it down, but go back into the chain. Back into that last stitch, which is the center of the daisy. Pull up a loop, skip a stitch, go right back into that next little hole, which is the center from the daisy below. I know I keep repeating myself, but I'm hoping that by telling you where you're going, you'll recognize it and you'll know right where you're supposed to go. Again, we're coming down here to the end of the row. You'll see that I have 1 stitch remaining here. So we're going to do just like we did on the row below. Go into our chain, go into that center of the daisy. Now we don't have a stitch to skip, so what we're going to do is we're just going to this last stitch here, pull up a loop, 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, chain 3, and turn. Now I hope, let me pull this up a little bit. Now I hope that you can see your little daisy pattern here. See the little daisy? Here's all her little petals. There they are. And as I said, it takes 2 rows in which to make a perfect little daisy. Okay? All right. I'm going to do 2 more rows with you so that you have a good pattern here. But if you're ready, I mean, you can just go right ahead and start your own. Go ahead and, grab your hook, grab your yarn, and be sure to do an even number of chains that will measure the circumference of the hat that you want. And there we go, down to the end of the row, locking over, going back into that chain, into my daisy, into that last stitch, finishing it off, and chaining 3. But I hope that you get the picture there. And as I said, it will take 2 rows to make up your little daisies. And the nice thing is that it's also the same on both sides. Alright, so that's all I'm going to do here, and we're going to get back now to our hat. Let me get some yarn up here so we can get going with what we need to do. Alright, that ought to be enough. Alright, so I have completed the last row. Now I wanted my hat to be a measure. Now this is just the body. It measures 5 inches. So I still have my crown and then my brim to go. So that means I'm going to have about possibly a 7 to an 8 inch beanie, but we'll see here. But there it is. And as I said, it doesn't matter which side you choose to be the right side or the wrong side. Now I'm going to take and fold my beanie so that I can bring my edges together here. And I always like for my tail from my chain when I first started to be on the left hand side. Yours doesn't have to be that way, but that's what I like. Now you have two choices here. I'm going to seam up my edges using a slip stitch. But if you'd rather, like use your needle to do so, that's fine. Just cut you off a good length of thread and, yarn. And go ahead and use your mattress stitch or your own, you can do a slip stitch by hand as well. I just choose to use my hook because I'm already here. Alright, so I have finished off. I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to go right back into this stitch here on this side, and I'm going to come over here and get a stitch on this side, pull through, and I'm just going to, as I said, just slip stitch. Well, my tension over here is getting a little too loose and I can't get mine. There we go. Now we're ready to go. Now when you choose to crochet your edges together using the slip stitch method, you don't want to get too tight with your slip stitch because you are going to want a little give in there for, you're going to be wearing this. Two, if you get too tight with your slip stitches, it'll cause it to pull in on itself. Now I'm just coming along here picking up loops from one side to the other. Now if you need to, you can use stitch markers to keep your edges together. The other nice thing about this pattern is that the rows will line up on themselves. Alright, now I'm down here to the corner. A couple more stitches. And then I will be ready to turn her right side out, or what is now going to be my right side. Don't do that. There we go. Come on. Just going to go back in here, make sure I got all my thread. There we go. And I'm going to chain one. I'm going to pull up enough thread here. Now, be careful whenever you're turning this right side out, and always have to think about it a minute, that your yarn stays on the outside. Now you may have to take and just pull this a little bit so that it helps the seam to lay out, but it then becomes pretty, almost not noticeable at all as to where your seam is. Okay, now we are back to our beginning row here, which was our chain and oh, I almost pulled that all the way out. Look at that. Get my hook back in there. Which makes it, again, another reason why I like to put a foundation row of singles or half doubles or something, because once I come back and get ready to make my brim, I have something nice to work into. And speaking of, not the brim, excuse me, the crown, because that's what we're going to work on next, is the crown. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use half double crochets, and depending on the number of stitches that you started out with, your chains, that will determine the number of half double crochets you put up here at the top. Well, since I had 70 chains and ended up with 69 stitches, I'm going to have 69 half double crochets up here on the top. Alright, so there's my first single crochet. Here's my single crochet. Here's my next one. And I'm going to also kind of sew my tail there in for a little bit, like 4 or 5 stitches, and then I'll go back and finish it out, going back in the opposite direction here in a little bit. So just a half double crochet in each single crochet all the way around. Depending on the number that you have, I will end up with 69. So I'm going to leave you for a few minutes and let you get that done, and I'll meet you back around at the beginning of this part for our crown. I'm coming back around to the beginning of my row here, my round here. And we will join with a slip stitch in the top of that very first half double crochet and chain 1. Now I like using the half double crochet here because it makes a nice transition from my little daisy stitch here going up into my crown area. Now it is going to cause just a little bit of flare right here, but when we start going and making the crown, it'll work itself out. Alright, so for this round, this is going to be our first decrease round, and we are going to start with doing 4 double crochets and then double crochet we're going to start with 4 half double crochets in the first 4 stitches, 1 2 3 4, and then over these next 2 stitches we are going to do a half double crochet decrease. So going right back into this first stitch here, we're going to make 1 half double crochet, a half double crochet in the next one, half double crochet in the next one, and a half double crochet in the next one. So 1 in each of the first 4 stitches. Now I do my half double crochet decrease just a little bit differently than everyone else's. Let me adjust my camera back here. Just wanting to slide. So how I do it is, instead of yarning over and doing a decrease, that creates for me a lot of bulk, and I don't like that, and plus it makes the decrease stitch stand out. So what I like to do is I will go in to the front loop of the next stitch and pull up a loop. Then I will go into the back loop of the next stitch and pull up a loop. There's my 3 loops, just like I would have on my hook for a half double crochet. Yarn over and pull through all 3. And then the decrease is not as noticeable. We'll do this a couple of more times and I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to put a half double crochet, 1 in each of the next 4 stitches. So there's 1 2 3 4, and then we're going to do that again. We're going to do half double crochet decrease. I'm going to go into the front loop of the next stitch, the back loop of the next stitch, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through, 4 more half double crochets. So there's 1 2, I have a hair there, just a minute. That was 1 2, 3 4, and a decrease again. Right, now I'm going to take just a moment and show you. It's kind of hard to see where those decreases are, isn't it? You don't have that bulk of where, this is where one of my decreases is. If we'd have done it traditionally, you'd have had a big bulge right there, and I don't like that. But you know, if it doesn't bother you, then that's okay too. So I'm going to continue going around doing my decreases. So 1 double crochet in the next 4 stitches. I think I said double, didn't I, again? 1/2 double crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches. A decrease. There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a decrease. Alright, I'm going to continue that all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the beginning here in just a minute. Alright, I've made it back around. I just made my last 1/2 double crochet decrease, and as you notice, I'm not going to have enough stitches here to do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up. I want these two stitches to be a decrease, so I'm just going to end up then with 2 1/2 double crochets and a decrease. And you're liable to end up with the same thing because, as I said, depending on the size of the hat that you wish to make, I can't tell you that you're going to end up with 4 double crochets and a 1/2 double crochet. 4 1/2 double crochets and a 1/2 double crochet decrease. All right. So you should see right here on the edge, she's starting to come back in. All right. So now we're ready for the next row, which will be 3 1/2 double crochets and a decrease. So I'm going to chain 1, go right back into my beginning or joining stitch there. So there's 1, 2, 3, and now my decrease. And again, 3, so there's 1, 2, 3, and a decrease. Just like we did on the previous row, except now we're doing 3 1/2 double crochets and then a decrease. 1, 2, and 3, and then again our decrease. So I'm going to leave you to that. I'll meet you back around here at the end of the row. Remember, 1 1/2 double crochet in 3 stitches and then a decrease. I'm coming to the end of my row. I have, or my round, I have just made my last decrease and I only have 2 stitches here, so I'm just going to finish this round out with just 2 1/2 double crochets. And that would totally be your call depending on, again, as I said, the number of stitches that you use to start out your round with. Alright, now hopefully you understand what you're doing, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you do the next 2 rows by yourself. So we started out with 4 1/2 double crochets and a decrease. This row we just finished up has 3 1/2 double crochets and a decrease. So this next row you're getting ready to start will be 2 1/2 double crochets and a decrease, and then the next row will be 1 1/2 double crochet and a decrease, and I'll meet you after these next 2 rounds. Alright, I've made it all the way back around, and this row is going to be 1/2 double crochet excuse me, decreases, but we're going to do them just a little bit differently. So I'm going to start out with just a single crochet. Yes, I said single crochet in this very first stitch. Then we're going to do our 1/2 double crochet decreases. Now before, I was going in the first loop, pulling up a loop, the front loop, pulling up a loop, going in the back loop. Well, this time we're going to go under both loops, pull up a loop, go to the next stitch, under both loops, pull up a loop, and make our decrease. Going to do that again. Go to the next stitch, go under both loops, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, under both loops, pull up a loop. And I do that because I want this last row here to be as structurally strong as these other rows have been. Again, go in the next one, pull up a loop, under both loops. Next one, under both loops, pull up a loop. And yes, it's going to be getting tighter and tighter here. Just keep doing your decreases. Remember to go under both loops now. And I only have, nope, there she is. I ended right back up where I needed to be. I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch. And now, because I just have this little opening here, I'm going to go ahead and tie off. Cut me off a good length of yarn so I can go ahead and stitch up the rest of my hat up here at the top. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to turn this wrong side out. Excuse me. Go ahead and find my tail here. Grab me a tapestry needle. All right. And now what I'm going to do, now everybody has their own technique for closing up the hats or gathering. I'm going to go in the opposite direction of what I stitched. And I'm just going to go around each post that was created to gather up my top here. I guess I'll stop right there because I can't. Oops. Pulled out my yarn. Alright. There's my next post. And there's the next post. Now you don't have to gather it until you get all the way back around if you don't want to. I just do it a little bit at a time as I'm going. And I'm coming back around where I started. There's my little knot. Right. And then we'll just pull that together. And then I will go across here several times just to make sure, number one, that there she is. That the closure is secure. I'll go from one direction to another direction, kind of crisscrossing. Now you can do this as many times as you want to. I do it about 4 times. And then I'm just going to slip in here a little bit, find me one stitch, and start locking it down. Do that one more time. Give it a good pull. Snip it off. Now since it's on the inside of the hat, I don't mind that little tail. And then I'm going to come back over here where I had my tail from the beginning. Now some of you might like to just keep on stitching that in there. I only do it for a little bit because I want to take my tail back the other direction a few stitches just to make sure that I've locked it in there. I'm just going to come through here a little bit, pick up 3 or 4 stitches, and then I'll go back one more time. There we go. Now I know she's okay. Alright, so there is the beanie so far. And as you can see, a really nice little transition right here between the body of the hat and the crown. Alright, so now we're going to come back down here and we're going to talk about the brim of our hat. Now there's several things you can do here. Excuse me. You can just leave your beanie as it is, or you can come back through here and at the bottom and do a couple of rows of single crochets. Let's measure our beanie here real quick to see what the height is of it. Alright, so right now my beanie is measuring, let me turn it this way so you can see it, 7 inches. And for me, that is a good length for a beanie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to find my seam and I'm going to attach my yarn. I'm going to go ahead and make a slip knot on my hook. Come here. I'm going to attach it here to my seam. Now see where my seam is here? I'm going to come to just to the right of that seam and come in and join it with a slip stitch. And then what I'm going to do is in every loop here around, I'm going to put a single crochet. So going right back into where I joined, I'm going to make a single crochet, and then I'm going to make a single crochet into each stitch all the way around. And I'll make you back around here in just a moment. Alright, so after we've come back around from our single crochets and made our connection, you can leave this just like it is, or you can add another row of single crochets. But I like to use the crab stitch to give it just that little bit of extra touch to the bottom of the beanie when I'm not going to make an official brim. And I'll tell you why. I just think that that little rope-like effect that the crab stitch gives it, that it creates, excuse me, just kind of gives it a little bit of finesse is not the word, but I just think it ties off a beanie that doesn't have a brim with just a little bit of class. You'll see what I mean here in just a minute. Now I know a lot of folks don't like the crab stitch, but to me I find it very easy to use. So basically all it is that you're doing single crochets going in the reverse. So if you're right-handed, you'll be instead of doing your stitches to the right, you'll be going to the left. If you're left-handed, instead of going to the right, you'll be going back to your left. So we'll start out with a chain on our hook, and into this very first stitch behind the chain one, we're going to go in, pull up a loop, just like a single crochet, yarn over, finish out our single crochet, go into the very next stitch to the right of it, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through, just like making a single crochet, except we're going in the opposite direction. Into the next stitch, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through a loop. And you just continue doing that all the way across. As I said, it's just making a single crochet but going in the opposite direction. Go to the next stitch to the right, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through into the next stitch, single crochet. That's all you're doing. I think because it's going in a what would be considered to us a backwards motion, which is what gives the crab stitch its name, it just looks complicated, and really it's nice. It's not. But see that nice little roped edge it gives? I just love it. As I said, on a beanie that's not going to have a brim. Go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. Go on the next one to the right, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. And what it gives is just that little bit of twisted effect. And as it lays down, because you're going into the right of the next stitch, it just, I think, like I said, adds just a little bit of touch. So if you're following along with me, just do that all the way around, and I'll meet you back here and we'll see how we're going to tie off. Alright, so funny thing, the clip in which I show you how to connect and tie off your beanie, again, just like before, I don't know what's going on with my program. I'm hoping that it's just a problem with Filmora, and we'll get it rectified. But anyway, what I did here is I just, after my last stitch or crab stitch, I just slip stitched into my first stitch just like you would if it was a regular single crochet, tied it off, left myself just enough of a tail to hide it in here in my seam. So as I said, I like using the crab stitch because it does give just a little bit of texture down there at the end, gives it a nice little rope effect, and I think it finishes off the beanie quite well. So there you are. There's our little daisy beanie. I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please be sure and share it out. As I said, I'm sure there's more than just a few of us that love new hat patterns and love looking to see what other folks are doing with all of the stitches that we have in crochet. So until next time, let me say thank you, and remember, be the light out there in the darkness for someone today, because you never know, could be your light that they need to see. I love you all, and thank you again for being here. Bye.